Almost out of coffee. Hi, I'm Adam. Let's draw some crap. Okay, here's the idea. We're going to be over on the Wikimedia Commons, and we're just going to take a random file. This is a shitty one to start with. I could just choose the picture of the day, because the picture of the day is actually selected as a quality image. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to choose a random image, or a random file, which may not be an image file, and if it's not an image, we'll choose a different one. And there we go. It's a sculpture. Some info about this. Vleugel by Heinz Reinders, 1977. And then there's also some stuff behind it. Kind of an interesting subject, actually. So this is the thing that we're going to draw. 30-minute study. I'm just going to do pencil today. So let me grab this. That's as big as it gets, so that's going to be my source image. All right, we'll run with that. Before I begin, I'm going to set a timer to make sure that I don't go over 30 minutes on this study. So let me get that going over here. Start. Great. All right. Do I have any particular interest in this subject? Not really. That's the whole point of doing a study of a random image, is that it's going to be stuff that I'm not necessarily interested in. I do like the sculpture, but if I were choosing a subject and thinking I'm going to draw something I'm really interested in, I probably would not choose an abstract sculpture in a park in the Netherlands necessarily. And that's the idea, to do something that we wouldn't normally do, to hopefully, that's interesting. So it's actually a bit wider than I already sketched it in there. To attack some of our deficiencies as artists, draftsmen, illustrators, whatever. I'm coming at this from an illustration background, so one of the reasons I would want to do a study of a random subject is because the more stuff I've drawn, the more stuff I have in my sort of, mental catalog of possible scenarios, compositions, picture elements for illustrations, and just kind of adds to my mental catalog. Hopefully makes me a more flexible and versatile illustrator. Now the point also of a study like this is not to come up with a good drawing at the end. That's not the point, right? You do not need to have a means of monetizing every bit of practice that you do. Unless you're a fitness influencer, you don't monetize every trip to the gym, right? Probably not. Going to the gym actually costs you money, but you get fitter in the process. That's kind of the idea here. This is just going to the gym. And I guess since I'm recording this and we'll probably upload it to YouTube, you might say I'm trying to monetize my practice here, but typically you would not. Okay. If we're looking at the reference here, there's no line there, right? It's super bright right here. There's no value difference between the right side of this block and the top of the block, but I'm kind of gesturing it in there anyway, and I might go back in and erase it back out later. I have not got that little base at exactly the right right angle, but that's okay. All right, I'm not going to worry too much about this because I know how to draw blocks in perspective. What's interesting about this subject is kind of where some of the shadows are falling here, where the shadows wrapping around that, the way that we have a little highlight on top of this. The lovely value composition of the shape itself, which I really like. I could erase that line, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it there. And then also I want to try to get some of the background in here too, just because that's part of the subject. So that's part of the thing that I'm looking at. And since I do not My preference is to do figure drawing. That's the thing that I'm most interested in. So it's always good for me to try to do a little bit of landscape or environment drawing as well. Because unless I force myself to do it, I won't do it. If I'm just doing what I want to do all the time, I won't do that much landscape/environment stuff. There's another interesting tree right here. When a study goes well, sometimes you end up with something that you might want to hang on your wall. But I'm not concerned with that on this one. The idea is to hopefully learn something about the way that the world looks, the way that the natural world looks on paper, and to practice mark making and to practice observation, all of these important things that we have to do as artists, illustrators, drawers, whatever you want to call yourself. Let's see. There's also a little, so at the front edge of this, there's a big dark tree. Big dark tree with some nice light foliage behind it. Okay, so I'm not gonna get this shape absolutely perfect, but I'm gonna try to get it in the ballpark. So, there's a cool highlight on this too, right there. The sharpener that I used for this gave me a strangely shaped lead today. A little bit irritating. It's not my usual sharpener. It was one that just happened to be laying on my desk because I found it the other day. And now I remember why I don't use it anymore. Really dark up through here. There is a highlight across the front part of this right there, and then that's a little bit lower there actually. Transition band there. When I have taught online and I have allowed myself to drift out of frame, I usually have a student who says, "We can't see what you're doing anymore." I don't have that in this situation, so if I drift out of frame of what I'm doing, or I start doing a bunch of drawing like up here, you'll just have to bear with me. I'm not used to recording stuff and watching myself to make sure that I'm keeping everything in frame. Okay, and this thing too, let's see, where are we? I'm only going to try to spend about 2 more minutes on this because this is the kind of thing that I sort of like to draw. A very you know, a very designed form with compound curves and stuff. That's my cup of tea. And I don't want to indulge myself in my favorite cup of tea. So what I'll probably do is I'll try to blow through this really quick in a minute or two. Super dark right there. And then get back onto the background, which is an area that I need to work on. There's probably a case to be made for just finding the thing that you're really good at and really like leaning into it and honing that. But I don't want to do that. I want to be a little bit more well-rounded, so it's good to do studies of stuff that you're not super comfortable with. Dark, dark, dark. I'm just drawing on some cheap office paper here, and so it doesn't have the nicest look to it. But for a little throwaway study, it's appropriate. Okay, there's the shape, kind of. Again, quick study, 30-minute. Move on, do the thing, and move on. I did want to get that highlight right there in this, so let's make sure I've got that. Is that even a highlight, or is that just the area where it's actually lit and the rest of it is a shadow? And an area is mostly in shadow, and there's only a little bit of light showing. I guess you can call that a highlight. And this too. Yep, I'm not doing the thing I said I was going to do, which was move on to the background. Okay, good enough. Move on to the background. Alright, so this shape stands out in really stark contrast to a very dark background, which has some highlights and stuff in the foliage here. Even so, I might set down a little bit of a light ground tone. And then just work down from there. Where I left off over here with this really dark background tree. Put in some of these little textural lines. This looks great, doesn't it? I picked a bad time of day to do this because the sun is coming in through the leaves now onto my drawing board, and I'm getting nasty little highlights. Well, okay, this is a lost cause. This one's not going up to YouTube. This is just a test more than anything. Feasibility test into, can I do these kinds of studies from home on camera and actually make them something that's worth watching. On the YouTubes. And I think today's demonstration is a a no to that question. There are a number of challenges to recording here right now from home in the basement here. The lot next door is being developed into row houses, so there are often excavators and things making all kinds of noise during the afternoon and morning. That poses a challenge. And this highlight issue, which is just it's just where I live. I just have this window into the yard, and the sun is over there to my left shoulder, and sometimes it's extraordinarily bright. And it's always coming through the leaves because the yard is enshrouded in foliage. And there's not much that can be done about that. Are we in heaven, Brian Adams? Are we really? Okay, I love doing stuff like this. Bark on trees. This is very small, but still very enjoyable. This is the kind of thing that when I'm working in ink, just get in there with the pen, twist the nib around, get some irregular shapes, and come up with something that looks really cool at the end. Okay, there's a little fence here, and we can see some highlights. These boards, there's also a little tree or something growing outside of the fence that cuts those. So let's get that in there. Uh-oh. It's the po-po. Or an ambulance. It's more likely an ambulance, but sounds like the fire department too, I think. I bet that noise that I just made with my mouth is really annoying. How many boards? There are 4, but I kind of ran out of space. Well, whatever. Okay, let's get the base of this tree in here. Another thing to keep in mind with this is, it's a random subject. We're not looking to have a nice drawing at the end, and we're not even looking to do the whole drawing. I've got about 13 minutes left in this. Probably not going to get the whole scene in here, but I'm just picking little areas of interest and seeing if I can render them in, an interesting or maybe clarifying way, and then moving on to the next area of interest. So I'm just going to make some sort of scratchy marks in here to represent some foliage. I'm drawing with an HB pencil right now. It's a Caran d'Ache HB pencil, which is more like an H from another manufacturer. These are a little bit hard in my opinion. And so I'm not getting really dark marks on the paper. I could switch pencils, but I don't want to. I'm not putting that much thought into this. Okay, that tree isn't as wide as I first marked it down, but that's okay. Is there much of a value difference between here and here? Not really. It's just, HB graphite black in both places, I'm going to call it. So I'll just go scratch this in pretty darkly. And up here too. Are some little leaves that cut across there. exactly there, though. Based on this line right here, the top of the photograph is about right there. So anything that I draw up here is kind of, you know, my imagination. Where was I? Doing this here. Get that branch in there too. Okay, this is what I want to do here. There's a big dark hole surrounded by foliage right there. I'd kind of like to get that in. One thing that I'm not able to see from this right now, not very well anyway, is the depth in this space. Part of that is we need some stuff actually cutting through the picture plane here. There's a path that runs right along here and out the other side of the drawing. There is, let's kind of get the lay of the land. There's this slab, the corner of which is right about there. I don't usually like to erase when I'm doing a quick study like this, when I'm going to erase that, because that line is very distracting. And it doesn't actually go out that far, but let's see, there's that big tree, there's kind of a bush here, or a lump of a bush there. I gestured that in too big, but and then we have, what are some of these? Some of these are like picnic tables, maybe. I bet that one there is a picnic table. Back here is some kind of covered area. And some dark up under there, and then some trees. Well, this gets me almost back to over here. So based on the width of that third tree, that dark trunk, is actually right about there. And then it gets a little bit indistinct up here. So we have some stuff kind of going like that. Alright, let's get this big dark guy in here. Let's get this little bush in here. Okay, on the side of this, more of this floofy vegetation. And after that set of highlights, it is quite dark back in here again. Dark. I think I was trying to gesture that in there. Words are just coming out of my mouth, and they're probably totally meaningless to anyone who happens to be listening to this. A little bit too much attention to texture and individual areas of detail when I should be paying more attention to the overall sort of structure of the light and dark here, and making sure that it's consistent. Like, does this look like light is coming in from here and hitting that side of these things, and they're all in shadow on that side? Kinda. Let's go up here. There's a very dark area here. bit of a break in it that has a kind of character like that. Another very dark area right there. And then, of course, it's very dark here where this tree trunk is. And then we're going to put a bunch of value in here, but we're going to put it in with some mark making that's indicative of the texture that I'm seeing there. It's kind of leafy texture here. I mean, the background is coniferous here, so you know what I mean by leafy. I guess technically the needles on a conifer are leaves, just very, very skinny leaves. Yeah, boy, I'm really having to smash my pencil into this paper to get any value out. Let's see, is that highlight like that? Kinda. I'll just leave it. I'll leave it. I mean, that looks good, where we've got these dark areas and then these bright pops of value in there. And I don't know what to, the degree to which I want to, like, get all the background details in here. I'm just going to look for some of the bigger dark areas and do the same kind of thing that I was just doing. Marking those big value areas with some marks that are approximately that are texturally analogous to what we're seeing in the reference. What's going on over here? There's this big dark area that I wanted to do. That is broken up by a few little bits of foliage. Whatever. Okay. What else have we got in here? I mean, there are some areas where we do see some kind of hard edges. I guess I'll get this roof in here just because it provides a good shape contrast to the stuff around it. Don't know what that repetitive honking was about. Okay, let's. I'm almost out of time. We've got almost less than 2 minutes left. Let's just try to get in some of this ground value, these shadows that are on the ground. And that's actually, I mean, I've left that like a highlight right now, which looks kind of cool and is not consistent with what we're seeing in the reference. Oh, there's the rest of the fence. like a little bit more of a real thing. There's also a park bench back here. And kind of a lighter bush there. Let's get back to the shadows on the ground here. I hate it when you've got the perfect spot on your pencil for shading, and then you rotate your pencil and you've lost that perfect spot and the marks start looking a little bit different. Isn't that just the worst? I'm smiling as I say that because I'm kind of joking. But really, I mean, it's a real annoying thing, but it's hardly the worst thing in the world. There are areas of highlight in there. That's kind of interesting. But for the most part, this is pretty dark. And very quickly, kind of get that picnic table in there. Jeepers. Sorry about that. That's super loud. Anyway, there we go. 30 minutes. The great potential of this as a YouTube series is a series in which an artist tries to do 30-minute studies of random subjects and kind of fails at all of them. I mean, it's not a total failure, but it's also not a particularly good drawing. But that's okay. That was the idea, to do a maybe not very good drawing of a totally random subject. At least I got a fun subject. I mean, I like this sculpture. I like the shape of it there. It looks kind of like someone's peed on it because it's just wet down there on the bottom for no apparent reason. Sun hasn't hit it yet, so it doesn't dry it off. Anyway, I'll stop talking now. Bye.
You